podcast. The Idlecast.
In the great hall of the Justice League, there are assembled the world's greatest heroes, created from the cosmic legends of the universe.
Scott McDermott.
I was bit by a black widow in Hamul in my sleep.
Harrison Perkins.
Every muscle in my body is clenching right now.
And
Scott Clark.
You know, I would like to get to know a tarantula.
their mission to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and to serve all mankind.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Friends.
Good morning, Vietnam!
We'll do it live. No. We'll do it live.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
I knew exactly what to do, but in a much more real sense, I had no idea what to do.
Words to live by.
Exactly. Yeah. That I thought of you because I know we've actually discussed that scene before, and I knew you liked that one. So good morning. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. Yourself?
I'm okay. We have construction people coming today, not to do any work on the house, but to begin to finish up the job out front in the front yard. So we've got
Right.
I have things I have to try to do today. As we're recording, I'm not technically yet retired, but it's been very busy, surprisingly busy.
You're not retired? I thought you retired at the graduation.
Well, not technically, no. I mean, in a sense, formally, but I'm still employed through the end of the month. And it's, as we're talking,
Right.
It's not yet the end of June. So anyway.
Professor Emeritus.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Beginning July 1, I will be. Right now, I am without merit. But as of July 1, I will have some merit. So it's interesting that you have to retire
In the academy.
yes, to accrue.
Not before
That's
the Lord.
correct. Yes, I still have my only merits are Jesus' merits for me. His active and passive obedience accomplished for me and credited to me. So blessedly, wonderfully. Wait, hold on. Idlecast News. Harrison Perkins has yet another book that's coming out. Film at 11. What, tell us, I wanted to do that before I forgot, because sometimes I forget these things and that would be bad. Before I forget, what is the title of the new book?
There should be a copy coming to you, I hope.
That's exciting.
That was my request, at least. Meeting God in His Means of Grace. How Word, Sacrament, and Prayer Help Us Encounter Christ. From Baker Books. And it's about, so it should release, well, as listeners are hearing it, it should be out. It should be out for a week.
Wow. Okay.
So you should be able to get it when this airs. And this is about how Christ is at work, that we receive Christ and His benefits through the means of grace, word, sacrament, and prayer, appointed as the ways that Christ gives Himself to us. And, you know, the defining way for experiencing the Christian life.
Tell me the title one more time.
Meeting God in His Means of Grace. How Word, Sacrament, and Prayer Help Us Encounter Christ.
Okay.
And I was just listening to the episode that, we record these in advance. If listeners don't know, spoiling the fun. I was just listening to the episode that came out on Saturday, and it was about how publishers change the titles of books so frequently. But this is one that I actually got through.
Okay. Nice.
They changed the subtitle, but the main title, Meeting God in His Means of Grace, that was mine.
Oh, nice. Very good. And this is Baker.
Baker Books. Yeah, I was really glad to get to work with Baker. I think they're going a good direction. They did it. I mean, it was a smooth process. My editor was good. Thankful for Eddie. Shout out to Eddie LaRoe. Thanks, brother. You did a good job, and grateful for you if he listens. All his feedback made the book better. And they did the book itself looks nice. copies came just this last little bit, and yeah, I'm hopeful that this book will be helpful.
All right. We'll do an episode on this book. That would be fun. I'd like to do that. And I'd like to, I'm looking forward to reading it. Meeting God in His Means of Grace, Baker Books, available now on Amazon and everywhere good books are sold, by Harrison Perkins, Meeting God in His Means of Grace. This is great because we talk about ordinary means ministry, and unfortunately, in a lot of places, that is just one approach to ministry, right? You've got all these other different approaches to ministry, but for Reformed people, you say, I'm Reformed, and then I say, okay, what is that? And frequently it's just, well, I believe in divine sovereignty, but I'm just adding that on top of my revivalist, pietist, enthusiastic Pentecostal approach to ministry. And actually, we want to say, no, there's a Reformed way of doing ministry, and there's a historic Christian way of doing ministry, really, even before the Reformation. And that is to say that God has established instruments and means through which He has ordained, promised to work. And we don't have to have, extraordinary events. We don't have to be overly introspective. We don't have to try to replicate apostolic gifts and apostolic powers and things that, frankly, we can't do and we aren't doing. And what people say is apostolic isn't actually apostolic anymore, oftentimes in terms of the gifts and things. That there is a distinctly, in a sense, distinctly Reformed way of looking and thinking about ministry that shouldn't be just a niche, just an alternative, one among many approaches. It should be the Reformed approach to ministry. And it's not because you and I like it. It's because it's what's actually the thing that we confess. We explicitly confess this in our confessional documents. The Belgic Confession, Heidelberg Catechism, question 65, the Westminster Standards repeatedly refer to, either implicitly or explicitly, the due use of ordinary means.
Yeah, there are things that I would like, if it were just up to me, to do in worship, and I will argue tooth and nail that we shouldn't do them. And there are things that I would like us not to do in worship, that if it were just to my preferences, that I will argue tooth and nail that we have to do them.
Yeah.
Have to do them. And that's because God's word sets the paradigm. This book was in large manner channeling, Mike Horton and a lot of the things that he's put out. I mean, learned this paradigm from a lot of people, I mean, yourself included, but, Mike, A Better Way, Ordinary, has just kind of championed this recovery of means of grace approach to ministry. And so this book is actually dedicated to Mike, for Michael S. Horton, champion of the ordinary means of grace.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
So I hope it's a fitting tribute to what I've learned from Mike and honors, the lessons that he's tried to teach all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's if you read it, in some ways, I think of this as Mike set the paradigm in a better way. Jonathan Cruz's book, What Happens When We Worship, helps us understand the components of a service as a broader consideration. There's more to the service in some ways, as the flow of the dialogical principle unfolds. And then this book hopefully sits snugly and complementary around, alongside Jonathan's book, to think about not just why do we have preaching, but what is Christ doing when preaching is happening? What is Christ doing when a baptism and the Lord's Supper is occurring and in prayer? So hopefully these three books kind of work together for people's benefit.
Yeah, word and sacrament ministry is another way of putting this. So again, this should not be a niche. So, for example, so I'm going to be a little pointed here. I'll be polite, but if your service, your liturgy is in two parts, where you sing for 30 minutes, and then the minister or someone comes out and preaches for 30 minutes. That's one approach to ministry. And that's a symptom, I guess, of an approach to ministry that isn't firmly grounded in the Reformed understanding of ministry. If the ministry of your congregation is oriented around mountaintop events, things to generate excitement, because that's the point, by the way, of singing a consecutive series of songs where the praise team, the worship leader, whoever that is, not typically the minister, someone else, where they've met on Wednesday night and carefully coordinated the chord progressions and so forth to create a certain sense of experience, a quality of experience, essentially designed to create in you a sense of euphoria, a dopamine release, or some brain chemicals to make you feel happy. That's what's going on when those things are being set up that way. And when the whole ministry of the church is oriented around, this mountaintop event and this other mountaintop event, and you have this sort of sequence of excitement generating episodes and programs and things, that's not a Reformed approach to ministry. It is an approach to ministry, but it's not our approach. And we don't think it's God's approach. So this stuff is really important. We're not really going to recover the Reformed confession until we recover a ordinary means approach to ministry, word and sacrament approach to ministry. I remember some years ago, there was a podcast by some graduates from Westminster Seminary, California, and it doesn't exist anymore, like a lot of podcasts. Right? Some of us keep persisting, but for good or for bad, but that's your decision, listener. But it had a great title, and I think the title was Ordinary Means. And I remember, and they did a good job while they were doing it. It was a good podcast. And I remember thinking when I heard it, I thought, oh, that is such a great podcast title. And I was so glad that someone was doing it. I wish they were still doing it, but it's hard doing this, as you know. Anyway, it's a challenge to keep doing it. But Ordinary Means shouldn't be just niche. By the way, we should also note that our dear brother, Scott McDermott, is on assignment this week. I don't remember now if he's back next week or not.
I don't remember either.
Yeah.
This summer is a juggling affair for the team here.
Yeah. Team Idlecast. One of you made a schedule, and I actually saved it.
I think I sent that out. Yeah.
No, he is not back next week or the week after. So when he does return to the Idlecast, we'll be very excited to hear from him.
And he'll get all the questions. This will be just him.
Exactly. Well, there'll be lots of things to hear, about his assignment, all the things, the exciting things he's been doing, and he can do all the work too. That's what happens when you go away. So, and you just started VBS for your congregation.
This morning, it was very exciting. I'm really delighted about this. So we started VBS back up shortly after I got here. It had been a while since our church had one. Wonderful volunteers that organize it. So Amy, shout out to Amy. You do a wonderful job of spearheading all of our VBS efforts. And I know Amy's husband listens, so he will make sure that she here's our commendation. So really thankful for Amy. She does excellent work keeping everybody moving. Sarah, my wife, contributor artistically to the Idle blog, partners with Amy to spearhead these. But good teachers. We had 27 people throwing in, and that's a great number. Just how good that I remind our church, this isn't just baptized babysitting.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
This is a real contribution of discipleship for our children, the covenant kids of our congregation, and a real means of outreach. We have half the kids signed up are not from our church, but from the community. And we actually had to close registration because we filled all the books that we all the workbooks. And so the Lord has been very kind to us. The people do a great job. I'm really excited. This is a week for them to plant, seeds of the gospel or confirm seeds of the gospel for young people from our church and from the community. I'm really thankful for that opportunity and excited that I got to go and welcome the kids this morning, pray for the people teaching and volunteering, but then also pray for the kids. And really excited to see them there and happy to, that they were happy to be there. My son was going and he's excited to go, and, he's young, but he's going to do a memory verse this week. And that's exciting.
Yeah, that's great. Every member service. That's what you said. And that's a great example of every member service. God's people using their gifts, loving their neighbor, loving one another, doing things that they can do, using the gifts that God has given them for the service of the Lord in the visible church. Oh, I like that. That's fantastic. Well, we have time yet to get into the coffer, and I think it's going to be very interesting, and we'll do it right after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Friends.
In the early 5th century, the world seemed to be collapsing. An army had taken the capital of the Roman Empire. It had been 30 years since Christianity had been declared the state religion, but paganism was still a powerful force, and they blamed the Christians for the collapse of the empire. The Christians wondered about their role in the world. It was to answer these questions that Augustine of Hippo wrote one of the greatest works in the history of the Christian Church, The City of God. Join Dr. Mike Horton at Westminster Seminary, California, in person or online for a special summer course, Augustine and the City of God, August 11th to the 14th, 9 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. Pacific. For more information, go to wscal.edu/Augustine or call 888-480-8474. Westminster Seminary, California, for Christ, His gospel, and His church.
Call or text now, 760-618-1563.
All right, let's open the coffer. Stuck together here. Got it. This is from Joseph, who says, "Dear Dr. Clark," you've got omitted. I hope you're enjoying.
Well, it's just the super friend today.
Exactly. I hope
maybe not that super.
Maybe not that super. No, exactly. I hope you're enjoying retirement so far. Well, it's been a lot of paperwork. That's what it's been.
You can go back to work if you like.
Exactly.
Yeah. Before you complain too much, you can just go back to work.
There's been paperwork with work too. So they switched service providers for the payroll. And so there's been a ton of paperwork. Not a ton, but there's been paperwork. So the paperwork that I did in 1997, where I'm redoing one last time. It's been so much fun. So I have a question for you. Even if you do your government paperwork correctly, if they don't read the paperwork that you submitted correctly, you're the one who pays for it. So it's like,
yes,
we said, well, yes, we want this part, this letter. And we clearly said yes, but because we didn't do it at the time at which the person who was reading the form expected, they said, no, they don't want that. And then to fix it, we had to, we could have done it by phone, but we had to go in. We went in. And the guy was great. I will say, I was a little nervous because, doing government paperwork, you never know how that's going to, like the DMV or whatever, because the building kind of looks like the DMV. Anyway.
Yeah, and they always paint it the color of a prison inside. Which I have yet to understand.
I did not notice what I noticed was the door. It was a little warm that day, and the doors were standing wide open, which I didn't quite understand. I thought,
why not, skip air conditioning and paint it an agitating color That'll help because everybody's calm going in there. Nobody's bothered by the things they need to do.
Well, we had an appointment and we got right in. So that was nice. And the guy was very helpful and he fixed it right away. So it wasn't that difficult. But,
if you're nice to them, like if you're kind to the people, usually I found they will help you. I get that you're stressed, but actually if you help them calm down and not be stressed. I remember being at the desk one day. I was switching my license to California license.
Yeah.
When I moved out for seminary. And I remember standing at the counter, and the guy at the booth or whatever next to me, was just shouting at this person. And I just switched into Southern mode.
Yeah.
How you doing today? It's funny. I got in and out way faster than that guy shouting.
Yeah. Well, it's true. So we should sympathize with the bureaucrat, the clerk, who's dealing with the public all day. That has its downsides. It can. And
help them to want to help you.
Yeah. Don't be a jerk. Be polite, be gracious, and treat them like a human being, because they are, in fact, human beings made in the image of God. And even though you don't want to be there and you don't want to have to do that paperwork.
They don't either.
Well, that's one of the challenges. The California DMV has a reputation, but by and large, they've been reasonably helpful. We used to have a DMV office right here in town, but now we have to go to, the next town over, San Marcos.
I had to go to Poway when I was there. I don't remember why. It seemed like that was the place to go. So it was available. We did.
Yeah. You can go. That's
right.
The interesting thing. You can now look online and see where the wait times are the lowest, theoretically. I should do all my stuff in Ramona, which is a tiny little town, smallish town. Not as tiny as it used to be.
I remember driving through Ramona on the way, and I thought like we had gotten to Escondido, and I was like, what have I done?
See,
going to Westminster, California.
Ramona I like to go to Ramona because it reminds me of home. It's relatively quiet and it's rural, and they have some cattle and a small airport and things. But anyway, so yeah, be kind to your government clerk, even if they're not happy to see you. So Joseph says, I have a question for you about Bible translations. I really like the NASB, New American Standard Bible is what that stands for, especially for deeper study and whatnot. I thought that was interesting. Whatnot. Anyway, and whatnot, at least when I'm working with the English text. I'm curious about your thoughts about the LSB, which stands for Legacy Standard Bible. I'm considering pivoting to that from the NASB, but I'm hesitant to do so because of my general skepticism of the MacArthurite / Masters crowd. And then he goes on to say, on the one hand, I like the use of Yahweh in the Old Testament and improved faithfulness when it comes to units of measurement, keeping it in cubits and whatnot, rather than translating into American measures as the NASB 95 does. On the other hand, I'm concerned about a dispensational bias or otherwise favoring quirks, to put it politely, in MacArthur's theology. Any advice and insight would be greatly appreciated. So I thought that was an interesting question. We've done Bible translations before on the Idlecast. There are 3 other episodes. One of those was a Superfriends episode. So this is our second time tackling Bible translations. But I thought this was an interesting question to deal with, because I get questions pretty regularly. And over the years, I've gotten a lot of questions about Bible translations. By the way, in preparation for this episode, we have created a new resource page, and we'll add that to this episode. You can find it easily, listener, by going to heidelblog.net/resources. That's one way. You can find all our resource pages there, heidelblog.net/resources, and they're alphabetized. And so this one is resources on Bible translation. Otherwise, you can go there directly, heidelblog.net/translation. heidelblog.net/translation is the direct address. What's the British word, the English word for slash? Stroke. Is that it? Because I have.
Yeah, I guess that's right. I think they.
Do they
they've
say
adopted
slash?
basically for web stuff. I think they probably still just call it backslash.
Oh, interesting.
Probably in print reference, it might be a backstroke is swimming. I don't know that I don't know that I've.
Here's why I asked, because
inverted commas is a thing. Because they have the single.
Yeah. For quotation mark.
Yeah, for quotation marks, they just have the single note, whatever. Instead, we have the double mark. And so it's backwards, or reverse of the way that we do it. Our second layer is single mark, and their first layer is single mark.
They go one quotation mark, two quotation marks, and we do it the opposite.
Yeah. But they call it inverted commas.
Yeah, which is confusing. But I was in the car, and the car reads texts to me. And for some reason, it read out a web address, and it said stroke, because I have the voice set on Ulster or whatever it is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, just for fun. Right.
Did you download that one, or was it one that was available?
I don't know. I don't remember how I did it.
I've seen the Irish one, but I haven't seen Ulster specific.
Yeah, it's Northern Ireland or something.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I just thought that was fun.
And Donegal.
Yeah.
Careful now.
Okay. Yeah. So,
yeah, you're playing with things that are dicey
beyond my ken. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's fun.
Northern Ireland is Ulster, but Ulster is Northern Ireland and Donegal.
Oh. Okay.
So they're not, the Ulster province includes all the counties of Northern Ireland and Donegal from the Republic.
Oh, that part I didn't know. Hence the fight. Well, not hence the fighting, but that's part of that conflict, I guess.
Just trying to keep you out of hot water here.
Oh, thank you. Well, our listeners in Northern Ireland know that I'm a Yank and am bound to be ill-informed about these things. So they're likely to be gracious with me. So I appreciate that. Anyway, so, I don't pull into parking lots. I pull into car parks and things. So it's kind of fun. And, the weird thing about that is that we have gotten to referring to her as her. It's a computer. It's a female computer voice. It's not a human being. And the computer has no sex. It's not male or female. It's just a thing. But we refer now. Well, what did she say? We say.
But, we've done that for a long time. Not just with phones.
Yeah.
Like boats, cars.
Yeah.
That's vehicles. True. So functional things that take us places.
We assign
have
grammatical genders But okay, that's true. But in this case, now we're interacting and taking advice from turn left here, go to the second stoplight and turn left. And
if you never talked to your car before, you've not done it right. I've interacted with my cars.
Yes, but they didn't used to talk back.
That's fair.
Right. That's different. And now they talk back and my car didn't used to give me advice. I used to give my car advice. Like, don't break down here. It's like, what? Clutch.
Please don't do that.
Yes. Clutch. What are you doing? Now I have to drive without you. I drove a 1974 Fiat sedan. What it was, 124 or 128 or something. I drove it for, I don't know, a week maybe without a clutch.
Oh, wow.
So that was exciting. You just have to really watch the stoplights, and then you have to listen very carefully to the RPMs. And so you know when to shift without the clutch. And then basically you leave it in second or third and watch the lights so you don't have to stop, because obviously stopping is problematic.
Yeah, well, that is one way to do. I mean, you got to stop at some point.
Yes, and then you hope to stop at your destination, right? And hit the brake and kill the engine. So anyway,
that is one way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, at the time, it was the necessary way because I couldn't get into the shop in time. and I had to have a car. So it can be done. You can drive without a clutch, but it's starting it was an adventure because you sort of lurch forward.
I forgot how. So I was just in Britain last week. I forgot how good the fish over there was.
Yeah, it's different.
Oh man, it's so good.
I wonder if it's better in places like Maine, or up on.
I mean, we have fish here. I mean, we have lake fish
and
in Michigan. I mean, it's good,
Yeah.
but there's just something. It's how they fry it. I mean, they just have. There's a place
600-year-old
by where we
grease.
live that used to have the best fish and chips that I've had anywhere outside the UK, and then they changed providers or whatever, and it's a different fish.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. And they're like, we do it the same. And I'm like, it's not the same. I don't care. And they're like, it's the same size. I'm like, no, it's not. It's smaller. You can weigh it all day long. You can tell me it's the same weight. I don't care. It's smaller.
Was it Atlantic cod in the UK? Is that what it is?
So the one that I had this time was haddock.
Oh.
Cod and haddock are the two most common, though. Yeah.
What I noticed was it was mild. It didn't have a very fishy taste. So this is the great thing about fish. Yeah. People commend it to you by telling you that it doesn't taste like what it is. Oh, you'll like it. It doesn't taste like fish. That's not a commendation for eating a species. No one has ever said to me,
that steak doesn't taste very steaky.
It doesn't taste like beef at all. You'll like it. It's like, no, actually, I'm here to eat a piece of steak because it tastes like beef. I like beef. And so why don't you people who like fish, why do you should like it if it tastes fishy? If fish is so wonderful, why do you like it when it doesn't taste like fish?
Well, one, I actually do like some of the fishier ones, some of them.
Oh.
But on top of that, I guess one thing is, it's not really that it doesn't taste like fish. It's just that it's not as intense.
Well, that's the whole point of tuna, right? I did not know as a child that tuna was fish. Because first of all, they advertised it as chicken of the sea. What's the best tuna? Chicken of the sea. Okay, I like chicken, even though it said tuna, and I guess in some, I don't know, it just didn't register for a long time that it's actually fish. Like anchovies. I thought anchovies were fine. Like we put it on pizza and things, and then someone said, those are fish. And then that was it. I'm done with anchovies. Because conceptually, I couldn't abide having fish on pizza, but I didn't know that anyway.
That I would struggle with that. I've seen it once, and that no. Yeah. I like fish. That's not the objection.
Olives,
it's just
I used to go to Godfather's and we'd get olives and anchovies, and then someone and anchovies are fish. Okay, so what about the LSB?
Oh, stop that double talk. I want to hit a Lone Ranger. He's talking pig Latin. I don't know what he's saying. Truth is stranger than fiction. I'm a victim of circumstance. Is everybody dumb?
No, just us. Just we. Only we. We alone are dumb.
This is the Heidelcast.
So, I have not used the Legacy Standard Bible. They haven't sent one to me. I haven't ordered one. And so I haven't really used it. I think I have electronic access to it in one or more of my apps. And they have a website, lsbible.org, lsbible.org. And you can use it online if you want to check it out. I did do a little preliminary research last night. Joseph gave us some of the particulars. He's right. One of the things they tout is that they're using the agreed vowel pointing for the tetragrammaton. Did I get that right? The four consonants that we have, and we have tended to translate it Yahweh. Once upon a time, we transposed the vowel points from another word and came up with Jehovah, and the Old American Standard Version from 1901 was famous for using Jehovah, which is kind of a made-up word. It's not an actual biblical word.
It's the consonants of Yahweh and the vowel points of Adonai.
That's how Jehovah came to be, and the Jehovah's Witnesses love the American Standard Version. If you want a copy of the American Standard Version, it's possible that the Jehovah's Witnesses will have one for you because in their mind, it ratifies their view right? They're Jehovah's Witnesses. Anyway, there's some, I think is it fair to say there's some consensus that the pronunciation Yahweh is probably correct. We don't have obviously absolute certainty.
Yeah, I think the contention or point of contention recently has not really been the pronunciation, but should we do it out of,
sort of the rabbinical question.
Practicing Jews would still avoid saying the divine name, and either out of aligned values or sympathy to them, should we avoid using the divine name? That's, I think, been the bigger question behind using Lord rather than
that concern does not move
Yahweh.
me at all. And I say that because I say Jesus all the time. And if I can say Jesus, I can say Yahweh.
And just for the listeners, that's the Greek way of pronouncing Jesus.
Which I just so we pronounce in English, we pronounce Jesus as Jesus or Jesus. So in my neighborhood, Jesus is very popular. So there's a lot of people named Jesus where I live. And in England, you and I were both in the UK, or at least you were for several years. And
7 years, yeah.
At Oxford, there's a college named Jesus College, and it took me a little while. I would hear people say, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to Jesus." It's like I remember the first time I heard that, I thought, and then it dawned on me. Dull American though I am, it finally clicked. Oh, this person is referring to the college to which they belong, the name of which is Jesus College. Anyway, so we freely, respectfully, I think we hope, we trust, reverently use the name of Jesus, but we use it nonetheless. So
yeah, that practice of avoiding it is driven by the third commandment.
But
but we can still keep the third commandment, provided that we say it with reverence, not flippantly, not excessively or superfluously,
and not as a curse word or a swear word, or of course, like that. Which obviously we're surrounded by that now. Time was the media tended to respect the convictions of Christians and others by being somewhat careful about the use of the name of the Lord, and now, of course, their media seems to be almost entirely filled with pagans and lapsed Roman Catholics and others.
It almost seems like that's the filler. They just put in the Lord's name, as filler. I don't know what dialogue, point is the right response, so I'll just take the Lord's name.
Well, because the writers are increasingly lazy and stupid, I think. I think the writing on television, at a certain point, I think had gotten, the setting aside the use of profanity and things, but in general, the quality of the writing at a certain point in the arc of the history of television actually improved fairly dramatically. But now I think we're in a downward spiral because the people who are doing the writing don't read and apparently can't read and have apparently therefore no imagination. Anyway, just dumb, which is good. I need to watch less television. Watching television thinking this writing is really bad and it's not getting any better. And the people who are writing it apparently have never read a book. So
the legacy.
Yes, go back to the LST. So that's one of the selling points. I'm looking at the frequently asked questions page of the LSB.
So maybe to digest, like, what is this? This is a newer translation that is a modification of the New American Standard. And maybe to help listeners understand, what's the significance of that, the New American Standard was famous for its commitment to word for word translation philosophy. So doing its best for a wooden literalism to take one English word for each Greek, Hebrew, or Aramaic word. Best you can. I mean, that's impossible to do in an exhaustive sense because that's just not the way the translation works. But that's their attempt, and even to preserve some features of word order that may not be
strictly English,
native to English. So this is a updated and modified version, adopting the same approach as the New American Standard.
They wouldn't like the adjective wooden
I don't mean it as pejorative. I'll
consistently.
Just say that. Yeah,
and in fact, one of the things the LSB says is they're going to do it even more consistently than the NASB. That they're not overt about it, but they do imply repeatedly that the New American Standard was not as consistent in the application of their principle as they should have been, and so the LSB is going to be even more consistent in the application of the chosen translation.
Yeah, they're kind of leaning into, if we use this word for this English word for this Greek word, we're going to use that English word every time that Greek word appears, rather than give the different inflections or, because at some point you do have to admit a translation is an interpretation.
That's the thing. I mean, it's impossible to translate without interpreting.
They're just trying to do as little of it as possible.
You can be heavy-handed and so there's a continuum. That's the other thing that, listener, you need to understand, that there are multiple translation philosophies, I think in groups of three buckets. So there's word for word, then there's thought for thought, and then there's basically paraphrase, where, so I think of, for example, Good News, right? Good News for Modern Man. That was the first paraphrase or paraphrastic translation that I read, which actually as a young Christian was helpful for me, because the first translation I tried to read was the Old Revised Standard, and there was enough archaic language in there that this 15-year-old struggled a bit to understand what was going on. And then I think I tried the NASB, probably. That was quite popular when I was in the process of coming to faith. And then the guy who was discipling me, as we used to say, Bob Rung, took me to a Bible bookstore and we looked at some Bibles, and I said, I think I can read this one. And so I used the Living for, a few years until I got more comfortable. And then over the years, I read many, many translations. I read the Phillips one summer, which I actually really liked the Phillips in some ways. But I think that you'd say that was a paraphrase. I would say that was a paraphrase. I've used the New American Standard off and on over the years. I've used the old ASV. Professor Klein recommended the ASV to us when I was a student. So I probably used that in seminary as much or more than any other translation. The NIV was quite popular when I was in seminary, when I graduated. And so that was something I used for a number of years. And then when the ESV came out, I sort of switched, like a lot of people, to the ESV. Actually, I use the Old Revised Standard pretty regularly. I like the fact that the ESV was a revision of the RSV, and we're going to fix the things that were problematic. The RSV's mistranslation of Romans 9:5, the RSV's decision to use young woman in place of virgin in Isaiah 7:4. Those are the two outstanding things. The ESV has sort of taken on a life of its own, and they made a fair number of changes since it first came out. And some of the decisions they've made have created some challenges for people. They announced they were doing something with Genesis 3:15, and this is the way it's going to be. We're never going to change it now. And then if memory serves, I think they changed it. There was enough hue and cry. So I don't know. I don't remember exactly where that came out. But anyway, so I've used a bunch of translations over the years. Despite the advice that I received or have read over the years that you should pick one translation and stick with it, I haven't really adhered to that strictly. Anyway.
Yeah, so in terms of the legacy one, I think there's a couple of different things we can say. One, no translation is perfect. It's impossible to produce a translation that now we never need anything else.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid of a new translation, providing it, has some core principles that, are on the right trajectory. Every translation has some theological assumptions, so should we be concerned about this because primarily dispensationalists were behind it? That doesn't concern me. One of the things that is true of them is they love the Bible, and the MacArthur Circle has loved, the Bible in its original languages. And so even though I disagree with theological conclusions they reach. I've never questioned that they love the Bible and that, they would be opposed to tinkering just to make some kind of point. Is this useful to, I mean, I'll admit I'm interested in this, not as, the exclusive, will this be the new thing that, is my forever Bible. I don't see that happening, but could it be a really helpful tool with some updated features and good things about it? Yeah, I think it could be just based on the, things they've outlined here on their website.
One of the questions I had, and I'm perfectly fine with using Yahweh. When I make my own translations, listener, if you listen to the Heidelcast, you read the Heidel blog, you may see sometimes I will do my own translation and just use Yahweh because I think that's helpful. But then if we're going to do that, why not use Adonai and Kyrios? Why not transliterate the name of God or Elohim? I've never entirely understood why we don't just transliterate those into English. That's what that means. Take the Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek letters and use English substitutes. That's what transliterate is. Hence, Yahweh is a transliteration, or at least an attempt. Adonai would be a transliteration. Just use the word in English letters, and that way we know, okay, here God refers to himself as Adonai. Here he refers to himself as Yahweh. And all the other names of God, we should just transliterate those. If we're going to be more rigorous in the application of the NASB principle than they were, which is fine, then do it. So anyway, that occurred to me. And then also one of the features that they tout on the website is the translation of the Greek word doulos as slave. And that's a point with the lordship people. That's something that Dr. MacArthur highlighted. That was a thing that was important to him. He essentially said that, and you can see my review of the Gospel According to Jesus. I have an extensive review on the Heidel blog. It's the Gospel According to John MacArthur. And you can find that on the resource page, heidelblog.net/resources. So did I argue with him? Not a lot. I wasn't entirely convinced that he's right, but he was certain that people were refusing to translate doulos as slave because they were afraid of offending people. And they weren't really being faithful to the original intent of the biblical authors, and they were sort of wimping out, for fear of offending people. When in his mind, it was absolutely certain that the word means slave. But then if you look at the LSB, they say, well, that's true in the New Testament, but it isn't necessarily true in the Old Testament. And so at that point, I think, well, that seems like, what do I want to say? Special pleading, I guess, would be my suspicion. Because why is the range of words in the Old Testament semantic range different than in the New?
Well, it is a different language.
Okay, but are those worlds so radically different that in the New Testament it only means this one thing, but in the Old Testament it could mean a variety of things?
Yeah, so I could actually see that. No, I mean, I don't have anything particularly vested in this, but I actually could see that because given the Old Testament backdrop is God's nation juxtaposed with contrasting nations and the clash of empires, essentially, where it is the lay of the land for the Old Testament unfolding. And in the New Testament, it all plays out within the context of one Roman Empire.
I don't find that compelling because there were almost certainly, I think, if you know about the Greco-Roman world, slaves and servants, there's a dotted line between them. There were definitely people in the Greco-Roman world who were what we would think of more as servants than slaves. Anyway, so at least personally speaking for myself, not on behalf of the Heidelcast or the Heidelberg Reformation Association or any other entity, I'm a little skeptical of that sort of hard and fast distinction, either between the new and the old, or even within the context of the of the New Testament. I might be wrong, but I'm not persuaded by the argumentation. And so it's interesting. So if you're wondering, well, how much does the sort of MacArthur distinctives influence the LSB? And this is a thing they've highlighted, right? This is a hill on which they're prepared to die, doulos. But as you say, that doesn't mean you shouldn't use it.
Well, it's a translation approach they've adopted.
So FYI.
And the thing is, they've been upfront about it.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things that, like, do I agree or disagree with that? It's not something behind the curtain.
Yeah, that's right.
And in that sense, the things that when these efforts put their commitments and approaches in front of us more explicitly, well, actually, these tools are easier to use.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with that.
I think.
And it is true that some translations have made revisions without always being particularly explicit about it, or, they haven't been as transparent sometimes as they might have been. I agree with you. I appreciate that they're being very upfront about that. A few years ago, the concern was gender inclusiveness, and they have a point on their FAQ page about that. It's interesting. I thought their approach to, because this question was helpful, because there are places where, the most accurate way of rendering things is to be inclusive. And there are places where I think that it isn't. And so a lot of this comes down to context. And there are unavoidably translational choices, which gets us back to what I think is the really important thing, or one of the most important things here, is that we need ministers who are really able to read the original languages. We need not to be dependent on translations. Translations are tools. They're wonderful tools, things for which to thank God. I have to my right and a little bit behind me a small bookcase full of translations. And I have apps, Bible apps that have many, many translations. And that, those things help me. I use those all the time. How did this committee decide this question? How did that committee decide this question? I was just researching a thing like that yesterday, right? I'm working on a textual critical question. It's a small thing because I'm working on 2 Peter, but it's very difficult. I really don't know how I haven't figured out where I come down yet on it. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it makes some difference. And the translations are split. The various committees, actually over the centuries, have been divided on this question. It's kind of thorny because sometimes you can say, well, the most ancient text says this, and it's the more difficult reading. And so you can see, well, the scribe then thought he was going to smooth things out and changed it. But in this case, the people that normally go with the one reading went with the other, and the other side that would normally go one way went with the opposite. So
these are still people.
Exactly. It's so interesting.
Making human decisions.
And one committee actually changed its mind. On the 4th edition of their New Testament, they went one way, and in the 6th edition, they went the other way.
Oh, right. Yeah. I could see that.
So that's so interesting. But anyway, that it's not usually the case that that's the way things go. But so this is really, really important. We need educated ministers, and more now than ever before. And here's why. Because standards are declining in many places. Lots and lots of ministers are doing their education online. And if you did your education online, I'm not trying to offend you, but you did not get the same kind of education had you done it in person. If it was all online, I'm not saying there's no time or place where it's not of value. And there are lots of places where they're lowering the standards as to what counts as learning the languages. Some places they're saying if you can use the Bible software, that counts as knowing the languages. No, it doesn't. You don't really know the language. If you can't at some point in your ministry pick up your Bible and read, or at least you figure out how to translate, actually do your own translation, you can't read the languages. And you don't really know them then. Because when you get out of seminary, you're just getting started, and you're meant to spend the rest of your ministry working on the languages, working in the languages, and becoming proficient in them and passing that on. Because if we're only one generation away from losing what we recovered in the Reformation. If we just skip a generation, we could lose what we recovered in the Reformation. We went for many, many years where not only could most ministers not read the languages, for a long time, a lot of ministers couldn't read. And that was a terrible thing for the church. It was a kind of Babylonian captivity. And we don't have to do that. And I say this because a lot of Americans are not convinced that it matters whether their ministers really are educated for ministry and whether they can really read the languages. And a lot of schools aren't convinced about this anymore. And so standards are slipping. And I think it's just really important. Now, does that mean, listener, that you can't trust your English Bible or your French Bible or your German Bible or whatever translation you're using? No. There are good translations out there, lots of them, and I'm not discouraging you at all. But at some point, a minister has to know the languages so that he can make a decision between this one and that one, and he can tell the congregation, this is why I understand this passage this way, because the language says this, and this is how this works, and this is how it fits in the context, and all of that, right? That's one of the minister's main jobs, which frankly is not the case in many churches. Right. In many cases, the minister's main job is to be a CEO, to keep people happy and be an organizer or whatever. Speaking for myself, I think Harrison agrees with me. The minister's main job is to be a workman in the Word of God, rightly handling the Word of God and shepherding his people.
I may have written a book on the means of grace.
Yes, exactly. Or two. I think you've written, in some ways, you've written two books, right? A book on Holy Communion, Take and Eat. And, right.
And there's another one coming. So yeah, it's almost like I believe this.
It's almost. He might actually believe this.
Agreed. And I do think, one of the big payoffs here is, what do you think of the LSB? Well, I do want readers to trust their English Bible. No translation is perfect, but most of them are trustworthy, that they convey to varying degrees of, precision, I guess. Something like the NIV may be helpful to get you into it, to give a wider sense, and then you switch to something like the ESV or the NASB later, or the LSB, to be able to get more depth in your reading. But you should trust your English Bible, and most of them out there, there's a few exceptions, but most of them are good, and you should receive them as the Word of God.
We can use different translations for different purposes too. Some might be better for liturgical use and use in public worship. As you say, some translations are better maybe for getting a broad overview of a passage or a chapter or a book. That are a little easier to read and, give a sense. I quite liked the original NIV. Over the years, I won't say lost confidence, but became less enamored of the NIV in some ways. But I wish they would bring back the original, I don't know, what was it, 1976, 74? The first edition of the NIV actually was quite striking in some ways, and I thought quite helpful. And as I say, I used it for a number of years. I'm happy with the ESV. We are blessed, listener. By the way, this isn't new. People think, we have all these translations and who knows which is right. Actually, it was that way to some degree in the 16th and 17th centuries until ultimately the authorized version became the dominant translation. But before the publication of the authorized, there were lots of translations out there. In fact, people don't know this. The authorized / KJV, King James Version, was in part produced to supplant the Geneva Bible. You say, well, we have all these competing translations. Well, we had competing translations for centuries and centuries. So there were a number of English translations going all the way back to Tyndale, right? Thinking about translations from the original language. And not everybody agreed with Tyndale. And before Tyndale, there were the Wycliffite translators. which not working from the original languages, but working from Latin and getting the Bible into English. So we've been dealing with this for centuries. This is not a new thing. It's not a sign of decline or anything like that. It's actually a great blessing that we have so many talented, gifted people working diligently to try to get the Word of God accurately into English. So we should be thankful for that and not take it as a sign of decline, as sometimes people try to put it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Read the Bible. There you go.
Amen. Read the Bible.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow for more from the Heidelcast, brought to you by Heidelberg Reformation Association.org. Don't forget, when the coin in the coffer clinks, the cost of bandwidth shrinks. Copyright Heidelberg Reformation Association. All rights reserved. This is a Heidel Media production.
The best podcast, the Heidelcast.